Good morning, this is Uncle Chris, and today I'm going to make some pemmican. What I do is I'll buy some ground round, and I thaw it out in the fridge to where it's only half frozen, so I can cut it into pieces and put it in my dehydrator. Now this ground round that I get from my butcher, it used to be super lean. I mean, when you ground it up, you dehydrate it and you grind it up, and when I did it, it was just a nice powder. But because of inflation and prices rising, they have been putting in fat. And because I've been buying it regularly, I noticed it right away that, hey, this isn't the same. There's like grease pooling up in the bottom of my dehydrator and stuff. But I'll point more of that out as we go along. But right now, I've got the ground round. It's half frozen. We're going to cut it up and put it in the dehydrator. Let's begin. Okay, this is the dehydrator that I use. It's nothing special, nothing fancy. I've got the top over here. I got limited space. But one thing I guess when it comes to dehydrating meat is you want to make sure it gets up to 160 degrees. But you don't want to cook it. You don't want it so hot that it cooks. That's kind of the point of pemmican. I read in a book called The Fat of the Land where according to that author, the secret to pemmican being nutritionally complete is that it is dehydrated and not cooked, so all the vitamins and everything are still in there. And according to the book, The Fat of the Land, during the fur trade they used pemmican and they would never get scurvy. The fur traders could live on pemmican out in the wild. They never got scurvy. It was a nutritionally complete food. And so that's what kind of attracted me to it, was the fact that, this is survival food. Is kind of a one and done. You make this stuff and you can live on it completely. You don't have to have a whole bunch of other stuff. So, like I said, this is like half frozen. And I just cut it into pieces. See, it's kind of squishing right there. And you'll see as we do this that because I bought the ground stuff, when we grind it up into a meat powder to mix with the fat, it's gonna just fall right apart. It's gonna be so nice. So yeah, with pemmican, it's just dehydrated meat. And you render some fat to make some tallow, and you mix that in with it, about 50-50. I do it a little bit heavier because tallow is supposed to be antimicrobial, and it's supposed to help with preserving it and everything. So, and I just eyeball it. I'm not somebody who's measuring everything out. I'm just eyeballing it. And so I go a little bit heavy, and I figure in a survival situation you'll have something like potatoes to supplement your meals and everything, and so having a little extra fat really won't be a big deal. And then I just take these half frozen pieces and we just set them on there. Just setting them right there until the whole thing filled up. And I let it run for about 24 hours. That's why I get up early in the morning and do this, is because you get up early in the morning, you get it drying, and tomorrow morning when I get up I will be finishing making it. Right now it's about 6 a.m. so tomorrow around 5 a.m. I'll get up and I'll start finishing it up. And I'm still waking up. I haven't, I usually have about 2 cups of coffee in the morning, and I haven't had my second cup yet. I was actually working on something for work online, some training modules, and then I remembered, oh yeah, I got that in the freezer thawing, and I don't want it to thaw all the way. So there we go. got the tray done. And I've got some more packages here that I will cut open and fill more of these trays up. So we got it all done here. We've got all of these. Now this is all raw meat. Like I said, it's ground round. And it used to be so nice that the ground round from my butcher was super lean. But this, you can see all the white, the fat in there. Now when it comes to pemmican, you want as lean as you can get, because you want this completely dried out. No moisture in there. And having fat in there will keep it from drying out completely. But I think because I have this stuff in for so long, because I think realistically you could probably do it for 24 hours, or for 12 hours, I'm sorry. I could probably dry it for 12 hours and it's fine, but I like to do it 24 hours to make sure. Like I said, it's around 6 a.m. in the morning right now. Tomorrow morning when I get up, it'll, around 5 a.m., 6 a.m., I will start finishing making the rest. Now I have in here lots of garbage. This right here, I'm going to render this down tomorrow morning too. That's fat, tallow. I'll just put it in a crock pot. In fact, I'll probably do that tonight before I go to bed. Stick it in a crock pot and let it render all night, have it on low, and then tomorrow morning we can start putting this stuff together. So as you can see, I put the fat in here last night, and this morning we've got lots and lots of tallow there. So I just took some scissors and just chopped everything up in there. So I took some scissors and I just chopped it up so it's all in little pieces. Let it just heat up, melt all that delicious tallow out last night. So that should make some good pemmican there. And here is the ground round. Now this stuff, it'll just pretty much crumble. I put it in a little blender so you can just break it right apart there. So it's been in there for about 24 hours. Let's get started making it. So what I do is I'll just take these dehydrated pieces of ground round and just break them into pieces into this little food processor, and this will grind it into a powder. So there we go. I do one tray at a time. Got that in there, and now we're just going to hit the button and grind it up. And there we go. Just grind it up for a little bit. And as you can see, it's like a little powder, just a meat powder. Then you take the meat powder, and I just use a baking tray. Just put that in there. And I'll just grind each and every tray up. Put it in here. Like I said, it's just a meat powder. That's all it is. And once we're got that full, we'll put the tallow in there and mix it all up, and you've got your pemmican. And that's the thing I like about pemmican. It's a lot like hardtack in that it's very easy to make. It's a lot more expensive to make, but it's still just really easy. And that's one thing I like about these survival foods so far, these ones that I've made. They're pretty simple. You can't really can't really mess them up. With the hardtack, it's just flour, water, make a dough, cut it into squares, stick it in the oven for forever until it dries out. Pemmican, you know, the official recipe is you get a lean cut of meat and you cut it into slivers and you dry out the slivers. But hell, we got modern technology. Why don't we just use some modern technology to make it easy? Get something all ground up. I've used ground beef before, but it's hard to find one that has less than 20% fat in it. And when it comes to having fat mixed in with it, when you do this, it bleeds out. Well, I shouldn't say it bleeds out. It drips out into the bottom. It's really messy. Everything's really hard to clean up. So you want as lean as you can. And now that my butcher has been mixing more fat in with the ground round, I might just get a meat grinder myself, buy a really lean piece of roast and just grind it up. Because look at this, it just falls apart in your fingers. Right? You couldn't do that if it was a solid piece. Now, some people think when it comes to pemmican, you can put salt in it. If you read the book, The Fat of the Land, that's where I learned about pemmican. And that is, the author talked, this is written, gosh, in the 1930s or something like that, I think. The Fat of the Land was written. He talks about how, you know, the salted meats and stuff doesn't have the vitamin C in it, and people would get scurvy. That salt does something to the vitamin C. And so with pemmican, you don't put salt in it, according to the author. That it's raw meat, dehydrated, and mixed with tallow. And that's the way the Native Americans used to do it. When Europeans got a hold of it, they would add berries to it. But the problem with that is that if it's just meat and tallow, it lasts forever. If you add dehydrated berries to it and stuff, you don't know how long the shelf life is going to be. So if you're making survival food, I would suggest just the meat and tallow, and that's it. Now, if you want to make it just for fun, or for just, I guess, a limited time or whatever, you know, yeah, you can throw the berries in there and stuff. Personally, I have experimented with honey. Honey is another food that lasts forever. They literally can dig up ancient beehives, and the honey that dripped on the ground, I forget what it's called, but you can dig that up and people put it in their coffee and they say it's a cure-all. I mean, from thousands of years ago. So I figured I'll experiment with honey, and I made some, and it tastes pretty good. I'm not much of a sweets person, but you know, I vacuum sealed it up, put the date on it, and I mixed honey in with it. I figured honey, you know, it's supposed to last forever, so why not mix that in with the pemmican? I guess that's good enough for now. Now, what I have read, and what does kind of make sense, is when it comes to a survival situation, the most important nutrient, macronutrient, is protein. And that kind of makes sense, right? If you are going to, if you're in a survival situation and you're foraging for food, you're going to find all kinds of plants. Right? Plants are there. But when it comes to protein, you got to catch your protein, right? You got to catch the rabbit, the squirrel, the wild boar, the deer. You're going to have to catch it and butcher it. But the plants, they're growing right there, right? You can go out in your yard and get dandelions. Dandelions are edible. So you can just go out and get all the dandelions you want, but protein, that's the issue. And that's why, in my opinion, pemmican is the ultimate survival food, the most important one. And if you are like me and you think we're going to experience hyperinflation and we're going to start having some huge problems, I highly recommend making and storing pemmican. So we have our meat powder here, and boy, doesn't that look good. Look at that. So and this is just me playing with it. I like to kind of smooth it out like that. Got my rendered tallow here. Yummy. And I'm just going to scoop the chunks out until there's nothing but the tallow left. And if you have any pets, they will love you, because after you dump all your tallow out, I put it in jars, everything left over, and I give our dog the pot, and she just loves licking all that fat out of there. It's good for her. It's good for you. Fat is really good for you. Your brain is made out of fat. I think it's like 70% fat, something like that. All your cells have fat and cholesterol in it. You get all that yummy fat, yummy cholesterol. All these morons that came out and said, oh, fat's bad for you, that's what causes heart attacks. And I knew that was bullshit, because I remember looking at my grandparents in their 90s, and grandma's cooking up eggs in bacon grease for grandpa. They're still going strong, no problem with heart attack or anything. And I'm like, you know what? If they're still alive and they're eating all that fat and cholesterol, then something is wrong. Now here's the jar. This has got my old tallow in it. It's down to there. Now the wonderful thing about natural fats is that they are antimicrobial. You talk to your grandparents about how they used to cook and everything, and they would save their bacon drippings and their beef drippings and all that in a coffee can. Back in the day, coffee cans were made out of metal, and they would put it in a coffee can by the stove, and as long as it was out of the sunlight, it never went bad. And you could take a butter knife or something and scoop out a nice big old fat piece of lard, fry your eggs up. Back in the day, French fries from McDonald's, everybody loved them, because all that beef that they had, they would save the fat, the tallow, and they would fry their French fries in it. And everybody loved McDonald's French fries. And if you want French fries that taste like McDonald's used to make, all you got to do is get some nice tallow. Just go to your butcher and get some fat, render that shit down, fry them French fries up in it. All you got to do is screen out all the little chunks from the fries or whatnot, and that stuff will last a long time. Now, one thing I love about this recipe is I'm just eyeballing it. That's what you can do. You don't need to measure things exactly, just eyeball that shit. This, you're supposed to technically have like about 50% fat and 50% protein. Like I said, I just eyeballed it. I think this is probably more than 50%, but the point of 50% of fat. But the point is you want this stuff covered with fat. It's antimicrobial, and you want all the moisture out of it. And when you eat it, you're going to get plenty of healthy fats. You ever heard of rabbit starvation? That's where you're getting protein, but you're not getting fat. So you're literally starving to death, even though you're getting plenty of protein, but you're not getting the fat. Fat is healthy. And I figure if I ever have to use this stuff, it'll be a survival situation where I'll probably be mixing this with, potatoes I'm growing or dandelions or whatever, because it's survival food. And so I'll be getting my protein and my fat from all this, and you know, carbs for energy and whatnot to keep going. I'll be getting from things I pick in the woods or things I'm growing in the garden. And now for the hard part. I'm gonna see if I can pour this into there while I'm holding the phone. All right, here. Can he do it? There we go. Look at that. There we go. Look at that, got some more fat in there. And like I said, it never goes bad. Just keep it out of the sunlight, keep it in a cupboard. This, the dog will lick that out and let it cool down a little bit more. And the pemmican right there, we're gonna let that cool down until it gets really solid, and I'll cut it into squares and vacuum seal it. So I went out, took care of some stuff, created a video, right? Yesterday was Thanksgiving. I created the true story of Thanksgiving. I highly encourage you to watch it. It's very entertaining, and it's based in reality. Believe it or not, the concept behind it, it's true, but I embellish some stuff to make it funny. However, the truth is Thanksgiving is about freedom, capitalism, owning what you produce, which creates an overabundance. So check it out. I think you'll really like it. But let's check back on this pemmican and see how it's doing. See here, it has cooled off. It's pretty solid now. And what I will do is I will cut this into pieces, and I will put them into some bags to vacuum seal, put the date on it, and it will keep forever. It'll keep until, you know, you're ready to use it. And as long as it doesn't get wet and it stays out of the sun, it's a food that's going to be there for you. Now with this, I put actually way too much fat in it that I normally do. When I normally do it, what I do is I'll put some fat in it, and I will I'll put some fat in it and I'll work it in there, put some more fat in it and work it in there. But because I was recording, I was just kind of eyeballing it while I was talking. So I guess in the future, what would, you know, if you make it, put a little bit in, work it in, put a little bit in, work it in until it's well saturated. What I like to do with these kind of recipes is to just eyeball stuff. If you make it too precise, it takes too much time, it's too much of a headache, and you're not as likely to do it than if you can dumb it down, make it super simple, and you know, quick, efficient. Then you can kind of have fun with it. You can play with it. You're more likely to do it. I know for me, if it was an all-day thing making pemmican, I probably wouldn't be doing it. But because I can make it simple, I can get in, get out, I can do other things that I enjoy, like making the Thanksgiving video, right? If I didn't have time to do that, then I probably wouldn't be working on this today. I'd just work on the Thanksgiving video and put this stuff off. So I cut it in squares, and again, this isn't an exact science. It's not something where it's got to be perfect. Got the bags right here. I don't think I can do it one-handed, but I'm just going to take the squares, put them in the bag, and vacuum seal it. Here we go. So I took about half of it out, put it in here, and as you can see, they all broke up. It's not going to be perfect or anything. Now, what's very important, I learned the hard way, is you got to take a paper towel. You're going to get some grease spots on here, and when you vacuum seal it, you're going to, if you accidentally get one of these grease spots, you're going to lose air pressure. Which it's fine for the most part. It's fine to lose the air pressure because with pemmican, your main thing is to keep it dry, keep it out of the sunlight. That is what is going to preserve it. It doesn't need to be refrigerated. It doesn't have to be vacuum sealed. Just no moisture and no sunlight. And there we go. We'll write the date on there. Let's see, today is the 26th. That's right, yesterday was Thanksgiving. So 11/26, 2021. There we go. That will keep 30, 40 years. And that's it. That's basically all there is to making pemmican. Now, years and years ago, you know, you read the Fat of the Land, which I recommend you reading that. If you want to know more about pemmican and everything, read the Fat of the Land. I believe it was written in the 30s. I know you can get it free online, a free PDF of it. That's what I did, and I read it on my tablet. But, yeah, you basically, because of modern technology, it's not near as labor-intensive as it used to be. The Native Americans, they had to hunt buffalo. It was buffalo meat that they first used, and they had to butcher the buffalo themselves and cut the very lean parts and then cut the fat off it. They had to render all the fat, and they had to slice the lean meat into very thin strips, set it out by a campfire during the day to dry it out, and then use rocks to grind it down into a powder. And one of the things the Fat of the Land talks about is how people could tell the quality of the pemmican by these sticks and stones that were mixed in with it. But we don't have any of that problem today. Oh, and they also used to put it in leather bags. And they would pour a fat layer on top and coat the whole leather bag with fat to keep air out, to keep microbes out, to keep moisture out. Moisture was the biggest thing. But today, we have a thing called electricity. We have a thing called machines. So you can go to the grocery store, and like I said, I used hamburger before. It makes more of a mess because it's 20% fat. And so when you're done, the dehydrator will have a pool of grease on the bottom, kind of gross. And when you grind it up inside, it'll be coated along the sides, the grease and everything. You got to kind of scrape all of that out. But it's still doable. Or you can get very lean, right? And that's what I'm looking at doing, because my butcher, they've been mixing fat in with the ground round. You can buy a round roast, find a roast that's super, super lean, cut it into pieces, throw it in a grinder, cut it up into sections, throw it in your dehydrator. I run it for 24 hours. I know when I researched it online, a lot of places talk about you can do it for 12 hours. I figure, you know what, I get up in the morning, put it in there, turn it on, forget about it till the next morning. You know for sure it is dry as dry can be. It doesn't cost that much in electricity to do. You can buy a cheap dehydrator as long as it gets to 160 degrees. You don't cook it. When you do the fat, read the Fat of the Land, they talk about, you know, it's got to be raw. You can't salt it, right? The author of the Fat of the Land talks about how doing that can destroy the vitamin C in it. And if you want a nutritionally complete food, raw meat, dehydrated, ground up, take some tallow, melt it down. I put it in a crock pot. I put the fat in there, and I chopped it up with scissors, just cut it up into pieces. Let it slow cook on low all night long. You get up in the morning. I take the scissors and I'll cut through it again because it'll kind of collect together and stick together again. Chop it up again, let it go for a little while longer, and then there you go. You've got all the tallow you need. I got the leftover tallow right here. I'll salt it, put some seasoning on it, and eat it. You know, throw the leftover pieces of fat on the side of the dish with some hot sauce or something on it. Your brain, it's like 70% fat. All of your cells have fat and cholesterol in it. Fat's good for you. Natural fats. Seed oils, no, they will kill you. But natural fats like tallow, lard, oh, that stuff's good for you. Get a vacuum sealer. Actually, you could get a 5-gallon bucket with a lid, mix up your pemmican, throw it in there, and when you get to the top, put a layer of fat on top to keep any moisture or anything from getting in there. You're good to go. Basically, with modern technology, get a food dehydrator, vacuum sealer, food processor. I think I spent $30 on the food processor. I mean, altogether for under $200, you can have a setup to where you can make pemmican fast and easy. Store it. You have a survival situation where you're desperate. You've got a nutritionally nutrient-dense food right there.